Blood isn't supposed to bind you in chains, but here I am, trapped in a life I never chose. Every heartbeat feels like a reminder of the promises I never made, and the family loyalty that slowly strangles the person I could have been. Blood isn't supposed to bind you in chains, but that's exactly how it feels stepping into the family store. The bells jingle like a mocking laugh in my ears. It used to be security, my parents' treasure, but it's a different story for me now. My brother, the superstar to them, drops by occasionally, yet collects a paycheck. Meanwhile, I'm the unpaid backbone, watching my time vanish like dust. Every step past that worn welcome mat tightens the grip of resentment. Stuck in a cycle of expectations, it's hard to breathe, much less speak a truth that might shatter their dream. How do I tell them their beloved legacy feels more like a prison, consuming me alive, and more terrifying? Will they even hear me? The bell above the glass door jingles, its cheerful sound like nails on a chalkboard to me. Stepping inside, the store feels as familiar as a worn-out pair of shoes that never quite fit right. The fluorescent lights cast a sterile glow over the aisles, illuminating every inch of my life that feels threadbare and routine. Mom's at the counter, her eyes flicking up from the register with that weary look that's become a staple of our mornings. She tries for a smile, but it's strained, the weight of unspoken grievances hanging between us. "Morning," she says, voice barely cutting through the hum of the fridge and the early chatter of customers. "Morning," I reply, my voice hushed, as if louder words might shatter me entirely. I shrug off my jacket, the fabric pulling tight at my shoulders, a second layer of discomfort to wear today. For all my wanting to escape, I've chained myself to this place by obligation and guilt. The storeroom smells of cardboard and faintly of spilled detergent. A mountain of boxes towers over me, each one a block in this prison of my own making. Opening the first of many, I catch a glimpse of canned goods, the labels shouting promises of flavors it could never deliver. Tomato bisque. It's not just soup, it's a lie. Just another thing I stack on these shelves filled with ideals never realized. Every box I stocked felt weightier than the last, as if each one was filled with promises I could have kept to myself. I mutter under my breath, each word a whisper that dissipates into the shadowed corners of the room. Dad shuffles past me, hands lined with years of hard work. He doesn't meet my eyes. His silence says more than any words could, an acknowledgement of my presence, my help, but not of my ambitions, my dreams. To him, this store is legacy. To me, it's a cage. The sky outside is a bright blue, inviting, but all I feel is the pressure of the ceiling above. Heavy shadows fall across the linoleum floor, ticking with footsteps of customers, occasional nods and brief smiles exchanged, but mostly I'm invisible. I see a boy, maybe 12, grinning at candies lined on the lower shelf. I remember being him once, seeing this place with a sense of wonder that's long since faded. For him, it's a candy store. For me, a life in miniature. I nod at the boy's mother as she catches my eye, a glance filled with sympathy she can't quite hide. The moment hangs, delicate and brittle, before she moves on. The weight of it all, the boxes, the sparkling shelves, the watchful eyes of everything I've tried and failed to be, seems to press on my chest. I lean against the coolness of a glass-fronted fridge, its chill biting through the cotton of my shirt, grounding me to this moment, this place I can never quite leave behind. The chatter of the living room buzzed around me, wrapping everyone else in its warm embrace. They didn't see the knots in my stomach, the way my jaw tightened every time his voice echoed in the air. Daniel walked in with that effortless grin, the one that made everyone gravitate toward him. He was the sun, and we all orbited in his light. But the brightness stung my eyes. My fingers curled into fists at my sides, nails biting into my palms. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. He didn't have to try to be adored. I watched him laugh and joke, as if he wasn't just cashing in on a privilege I could only dream of. That easy way he had, it infuriated me. I wanted to scream, tell everyone how he wasn't as perfect as he seemed, that he showed up whenever he felt like it, leaving me to pick up his slack, his responsibilities, while I became invisible in the shadow he cast. Beside me, someone said, "Oh, Daniel, you're just in time." My mother's voice was honeyed, dripping with delight. My jaw clenched tighter. I knew what would follow. He was never too early, never too late, just in time. Look what Daniel did. Isn't he wonderful? It was always Daniel, Daniel, Daniel. as if I were there merely to fill in the spaces between his absence. He sat across from me, catching my eye with a grin that was a knife twisting in my gut. "Hey, brother," he said, like we were in on some secret joke. But the only joke was the one being played on me. I forced a smile, lips barely parting, masking the bitterness that threatened to spill. The room was a tableau of admiration focused on him, and I was the invisible man, observing from the outskirts of my solitude. I wanted to call him out, tell everyone how during the weeks he was away, on some grand adventure, no doubt. I was here, ensuring the clockwork of our shared responsibilities never faltered. But I knew the words would die on my lips, that any protest would be met with incredulous looks, and I'd be the one causing a scene, again. Glass clinked as drinks were poured, and in the shimmer of their camaraderie, I saw my own reflection, a distorted figure whose struggles went unnoticed. Each laugh, every cheer, was a reminder that I was alone in my resentment, a silent force they couldn't hear, wouldn't recognize. The unfairness tasted metallic, bitter at the back of my throat. I watched from my corner as Daniel basked in the attention, his laughter the loudest, his stories the most thrilling. The room agreed with him. The world always did. And me? I was the spectator, the keeper of resentments buried beneath a well-worn mask. The air in the cramped stockroom felt stifling, like the walls were closing in around us. My brother stood across from me, backlit by the harsh fluorescence that flickered with an irritating buzz. There was a weight in his gaze, heavy and accusing, tightening around my throat like a noose. "I can't be here anymore if things stay this way," he snapped, his voice low yet laced with an edge sharp enough to cut. I leaned back against a stack of cardboard boxes, the coolness of the metal shelving pressing into my spine, grounding me to the moment. "You think this is all for you, don't you?" I spat the words through clenched teeth, each syllable a shard of glass I wanted to embed in his perfect facade. "While I'm just a spare part in your narrative." His eyes flared, a match struck in a room soaked with gasoline. "Are you serious? You have no idea how it feels to always be the one left cleaning up afterward. I'm the one who has to hold everything together while you get to drift through, causing chaos." A nervous laugh escaped me, bitter and brittle. "Chaos? I'm the one picking up your messes. But everyone always sees your side, right? The golden child. The favorite. Don't you dare bring them into this," he warned, tension rippling through his frame like a coiled spring. "Every time you mess up, it's me who gets the call to fix it. It's my life you scramble, my plans you screw with." I pushed myself off the boxes, stepping forward into the thin strip of shadow between us. My breath mingled with his, heated and heavy. "And where are they now? Where are the rescuers?" My voice quivered with the anger I could barely keep contained. "Where's my lifeline when I need it, when I'm the one drowning?" He broke eye contact, his jaw working as he struggled for words. In the silence, the sound of my heart pounded loud in my ears, drowning out the faint sound of customers on the other side of the wall, utterly oblivious to the wreckage being wrought behind their neatly stacked shelves. There was something raw and vulnerable in his hesitation that I leaned into, ignoring the tightness in my chest and the growing frustration that gnawed at my patience. "Look, I get it. I do." His tone softened for a fleeting moment, but the bitterness returned like an unwelcome guest. "But stop blaming everyone else for how you feel. It's time you faced up to your own choices." His words landed with a thud, settling between us. The real truth, the painful one neither of us wanted to admit, danced around us like shadows cast from the dim light overhead. In that moment, with everything laid bare, I wondered if there was still a way to bridge the gaping chasm of misunderstanding between us, or if sibling rivalry would forever be the tie that bound us. I stood there, in the silence that felt like the aftermath of a storm, the kind where debris floats in the air and the sky hangs low, too heavy with unshed tears. The walls seemed to close in slowly, almost conspiratorially, and I couldn't help but feel like they were judging me. The argument had left a hushed echo in its wake, one that pulsed in my ears and made my skin crawl with unease. "What choice do I have, really?" The words fell from my lips, barely a whisper, barely a breath. They felt like a betrayal even now, as I stood alone in the shadowy room. The guilt was a tangible thing, a second skin that I couldn't peel off, no matter how I clawed at the invisible seams with desperate fingers. I looked around, my eyes landing on the photographs lining the mantelpiece. smiling faces trapped behind glass, frozen in a moment of family unity that now felt almost foreign. Was it ever really genuine, or just layers of smiles worn like masks, beats of familial obligation rather than true connection? And where did I fit into all of it, besides being the perennial hinge on which this fragile door swung? I sank onto the edge of the couch, the fabric cool and indifferent under me. Thoughts reeled in my head like broken film, skipping and sputtering in continuous, relentless loops, each one darker than the last. This was meant to be simple. Familial loyalty was supposed to be as natural as breathing. But here I was, suffocating under the weight of expectations I might never fulfill. Voices bubbled up from the depths of my mind, ghosts of past conversations echoing like a macabre chorus. Responsibilities, they said. Commitments. These are the chains you choose, and once chosen, they are yours forever. But what if they were wrong? What if I was wrong? Each question unfurled like a ribbon, leading to darker places I feared to tread, doors I dared not open, lest their truths consume me. My hands shook slightly as I rubbed them against the fabric, hoping, maybe, that friction could ignite clarity, could burn away doubt, and leave only resolve in its wake. But anger was quicksand, and so was regret. I could feel them tugging at my ankles, pulling me deeper into an abyss of my own creation. There was no escape, no gentle reprieve. Only the realization that my loyalty was no longer a simple, comforting anchor. It was a noose tightening around my neck, tethered to people I loved, but didn't understand, maybe never had. And in the terrifying clarity of that moment, as the house held its breath around me, I realized I was fighting a battle on fields of my own making. I stood, shaky but determined, the room spinning slightly as if the universe itself watched and waited for my next move, critically and without compassion. The choice was mine to make, the guilt mine to manage, if I had the courage to grasp it. The familiar hum of conversation from the living room felt different today, charged with an unspoken tension that seemed to hang over us all like a weighted shroud. I stood in the hallway, gripping the edge of the doorway, my heart pounding so loudly it drowned out any logical thought. With a deep breath, I stepped in, my footsteps barely audible on the worn carpet. Sunlight filtered weakly through the heavy drapes, casting long shadows across my parents, who sat side by side on the sofa like judges on a bench, their expressions expectant yet apprehensive. I could almost hear the tick of the old wall clock slicing through the silence. My voice felt small in the expanse of the room, but I steadied it, letting years of practiced self-restraint unravel with each word. A fair share, that's all I'm asking for. I began, my eyes locking onto my father's, a mix of vulnerability and defiance binding my gut. His eyes flickered, a subtle twitch betraying the stoic mask he wore. You promised that love was supposed to be equal, didn't you? The air seemed to pulse with the weight of unshed tears. My mother's fingers twitched, grasping at the strand of pearls around her neck, a nervous habit I recognized. Her lips parted, but no words came. It was as if we were frozen in time, trapped in this tableau of familial fracture. Equal? In this family. My father's voice was a gravelly echo of disbelief, a scoff lifting at the end as if the concept itself were absurd. It hurt to hear it, that dismissive edge cutting sharper than any knife. Yes, equal. My voice wavered, but I pressed on, each word a rock thrown into the still, deep water between us. I'm not asking for more than what's right. Just the same chances, the same love. His gaze fell to the floor, and for a moment, I saw the battle play out across his features, the war between tradition's iron grip and a father's buried instinct to protect. My mother remained silent, her silence a third presence more powerful than speech. We did for you what we thought was best, my father said finally, the words wrapped in an old kind of sadness. I'm not a child anymore, I replied, my voice steadier now, rooted. I need you to see me for who I am, not who you wish I could be. The room contracted, bringing them closer, their eyes finally lifting to meet mine fully. In that moment, I felt the shift, subtle yet profound, as if a fault line had trembled and settled in the earth of our lives. It was a beginning, one small victory against a lifetime of expectations. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy with the possibility of all the things left unsaid, but also a promise of more to come. I held on to that hope as fiercely as I had held on to my courage moments before. Today, I was finally heard, and that was the first step. The door handle is cold, resisting my touch like every escape plan I've ever dreamed of. My hand trembles, suspended between two worlds, the fluorescent-lit store behind me and the unknown freedom that waits beyond the glass. It's tempting, that promise of liberation, but a weight in my chest holds me back. Breathing becomes shallow, and I can hear the rhythmic hum of the store's air conditioning battling the erratic thrum of my own heart. It feels almost conspiratorial, as if the universe itself is reminding me of every failed attempt to break free. Yet here I am, trying again, missing that wicked sense of normalcy that others never question. Behind me, the aisles are silent, as if they too are holding their breath. Memories slink back into my mind uninvited, shadows birthed from the aisles. Mom's worn-out smile as she waves goodbye, the tired flicker of light in Dad's eyes. Love chained to duty, a legacy I never asked for but bear nonetheless. Each recollection squeezes tighter, making the door handle colder. I close my eyes, willing the chaos to settle. Just one step. I whisper, more to myself than anyone else, the words barely audible over the mechanical cough of the air ducts. But it's not that simple, is it? There's always a pull, a reminder that my escape is just as entwined with guilt as it is with longing. Suddenly, the crackle of footsteps on linoleum slices through the air. I jerk around, heart pounding, expecting to see a familiar face, an anchor back to everything I'm trying to flee. But the place is empty, void of any human presence, just like my resolve feels in this moment. The pressure of unseen eyes drills into my back, the kind that knows too much, expects too much. For a second, I let myself imagine leaving. The image is surreal. Me, standing outside in the biting air, free of this place. But the freedom in my fantasy feels hollow, echoing with the absence of those I know I'd leave behind. It's a betrayal, this wish, stabbing deeper than any blade. My phone buzzes in my pocket, the unexpected vibration a lifeline and a shackle all at once. Fingers fumbling, I pull it out, staring at the screen. A message from Mom. Hope to see you soon. 5 words that crash into me like waves against a cliff, eroding my resolve, reshaping the landscape of my intentions. I grip the door handle again, tighter now. The battle rages inside, a maelstrom of desire and responsibility. Every instinct urges me to run, but here I stand, a statue, frozen by the unyielding grip of love tied too closely to obligation. In the end, it's not just about leaving. It's about what's left behind. If I walk out now, then what of us? The room felt different, like the air had settled into a kind of uneasy calm after a storm. The tension was still there, a heavy presence lurking in the corners, but for the first time, it seemed we all shared a desire to move past it. I sat at the edge of the couch, the fabric stiff against my back, tracing the worn pattern with my fingers, trying to concentrate on anything but the strangeness of the quiet. Mom was in the kitchen, her movements softly clinking ceramic, the soundtrack to a strange piece. Dad sat opposite, eyes glued to his book but not turning a single page, his reading glasses perched uselessly on the tip of his nose. Dinner's almost ready, Mom called, not raising her voice, yet somehow sounding far away. Her tone wasn't sharp. It was balanced, as if she'd found some equilibrium in the chaos. Okay, I managed to reply, my voice barely catching in my throat as I glanced over at Dad. This was new. All of us occupying the same space without an unspoken grievance twisting the air. Maybe this time, the silence wasn't a wall between us, but a bridge. Dad shifted and cleared his throat, a low rumble that drew my eye. How's school? He asked, the words dropping awkwardly into the room. It wasn't much of a question, but it was something, anything, a tentative dipping of toes into conversation, testing the water. Fine, I said. Then, realizing the fragility of this moment needed more, added, we're starting a project on ecosystems. I picked forests, my voice trailed off, but Dad nodded, a soft smile teasing the edges of his lips as if trying to rise above unfamiliar territory. That sounds interesting, Mom chimed in, emerging from the kitchen with a tray of steaming bowls. Her eyes met mine, and held for a moment longer than usual. It was quick, the flicker of something warm and encouraging, then gone, replaced with the shuffle of placing bowls onto the table. I rose from the couch, strands of my sleeve catching on Mum's knitted throw, a brief tug before I released myself. Sitting at the table, I marveled at how the clinking of spoons and the soft thud of bowls could be comforting, grounding, instead of triggering an avalanche of buried resentment. Dad was the first to pick up his fork. He paused, looking at both Mom and me as if contemplating a leap into uncharted waters. "Let's try to do this more often," he said, his voice low but sincere, a fragile promise suspended in the air. Mom nodded, her eyes cautiously optimistic. "Yes. Let's." And though it was just dinner, and the roads were still winding and fraught with pitfalls, this was a start. Gentler words on the shoulders of uneasy quiet, forming fragile hopes we dared to cradle. For now it was enough. The car door thuds shut behind me, its echo sealing in the quiet anticipation that throbs in my chest. I stand on the cracked pavement of the office park, staring up at the glass building that reflects a sky so bright it seems almost surreal. This is it. This could be it. The beginning or an end. But nothing starts without a step. Inside, the scent of fresh coffee mingles with the papery undertone of a workspace, clean yet lived in. My fingers clutch the resume so tightly the paper threatens to crease. It's just a backup, a relic of a life I'm not sure I'm ready to leave behind. Yet, something inside me churns, hungry for the newness this building promises. The people passing by me in the corridor are purposeful, each stride measured and sure, as if they were born to walk these halls. They don't look like me. I'm fighting the knot in my stomach, the silent voice reminding me of the familial ties I'd be stretching, maybe severing, to be here. My phone buzzes in my pocket, probably another message from my father. The barest flicker of guilt mixes with adrenaline, an intoxicating, confusing cocktail. Pausing just outside the conference room, I'm caught between the familiar comforts of the family business, faces I know, a future that's predictable, safe, and this, the unknown path that finally feels like it's mine to tread. The image of my father's disappointed face flashes in my mind, his silent judgment more cutting than words. My mother's quiet resignation, her dreams of the seamless family legacy shattered if I choose this. For years, those expectations have been a lead blanket, endlessly heavy. Glancing down, I catch my own reflection in the gleaming glass door. Uncertain eyes stare back, asking questions I can't yet answer. This moment feels suspended in time, teetering on what could either be the most profound decision of my life or a foolish detour I won't recover from. Taking a breath, I remind myself that fear is a companion of change. That's what the podcasts and career self-help books say, anyway. Swallowing hard, riddled with the agony of free will, I remind myself I asked for this interview, my first real move beyond the carefully laid trap of my life's path. I step through the door, and the sound of chattering voices fills the air, each one a potential story I could become a part of. The woman at the table looks up, offering a polite smile that does little to calm my nerves. I offer my own smile, thin and tentative. "Hi, I'm here for the interview." In that moment, standing on the precipice of everything and nothing, I realize this step isn't just about a job. It's about claiming my place in the world, irrespective of where I came from. As I extend my hand for the offered shake, the future is no longer a distant promise. It's right here, nestled in the space between fear and hope. The dinner table was a solemn stage, each place set with cautious optimism. A low hum of distant conversation wrapped the room, not loud enough to intrude, but just enough to remind us we were still inside the world. I settled into my usual seat, wooden, familiar, the grain worn where restless fingers had traced countless times. Mom placed the roast at the center, the aroma clinging to the air like a promise. For a moment, I noticed the way the light caught her eyes, flickering, almost hopeful, as she glanced around, seeking something more than mere acknowledgement. Dad unfolded his napkin with a deliberate slowness, a gentle rustle that punctuated the silence, each movement laced with the weight of unspoken words. We gathered, broken pieces slowly finding their places, as if knowing that we were more than just a sum of debts and duties. Every clink of cutlery seemed like an opening note in our hesitant symphony, building and faltering as we navigated the familiar terrain of shared meals. "Pass the potatoes?" my brother asked, his voice cutting through like a tender olive branch. I passed them, noticing the brief touch of our fingers on the cool porcelain, a touch that spoke volumes about a truce neither of us had outwardly declared. School going all right? Dad ventured, hesitant yet genuine, his gaze meeting mine with a mix of expectation and apology. The question carried old echoes, wrapped in new meaning, yet I found comfort in its familiarity. Yeah, I nodded, managing a small smile. We're starting new projects next week. I felt his relief flow across the table, a gentle tide of reassurance that maybe the distance wasn't as insurmountable as it always seemed in my mind. Mom cleared her throat, her chair creaking subtly as she leaned forward. And you're still writing, right? She asked, a glimmer in her voice that hinted at pride, her own silent acknowledgement of my quiet rebellion against the norms. Her belief had always been her gift to me, a beacon through my darkness. Yeah, still writing, I replied, the words escaping with a tenderness I hadn't allowed myself to feel in too long. The room seemed to exhale with me, easing into a rhythm we hadn't dared hope for. Conversation meandered through safe territories, weather, school tales, distant relatives. Each story a step toward an uncharted understanding. As forks scraped over plates and laughter became a bridge, I felt the edges of our rough, jagged history smoothing just a bit. In our tentative sharing, a fragile yet palpable connection, the silence that followed was no longer daunting, but a comfortable pause. We were no longer just navigating obligations. We were rediscovering each other. As we finished and started to clear the table, I caught my own reflection in the polished china and realized that sometimes breaking apart is what brings you back together, stronger, more resilient. We were beginning to mend, a family beyond expectation, stepping into the unsteady light of something new.